Hi, I'm Ann Sullivan. I work with organizations that want to create workplace environments where people are productive, creative, and appreciated. Today on Dove Barron's Leadership and Loyalty Show, I'm going to reveal some secrets that you can go back to your office and use today to create a better workplace culture. Stay tuned.
Congratulations! You are tuned into Dove Barron's Leadership and Loyalty Show, the #1 podcast for Fortune 500 executives and those who are dedicated to creating a quantum leap in leadership. Your host, Dove Barron, is the founder of FullMontyLeadership.com. He's an executive mentor to leaders like you, a contributing writer for Entrepreneur Magazine, CEO World, and he's been featured on CNN, Fox, CBS, and many other notable sites. Dove Barron is an international business speaker who was named by Inc. magazine as one of the top 100 leadership speakers to hire. Now, over to Dove Barron.
Welcome, dear friends, fans, and fellow aficionados of leadership excellence. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Dove Barron's Leadership and Loyalty Tips for Executives, part of the Full Monty interview series, where today we're going to look at what it really takes to create lasting loyalty. If you're a new listener, new viewer, thank you for joining us. Strap yourself in. We're about to go full Monty. And if you're a regular, big thank you to you for making us the #1 podcast globally for Fortune 500 listeners. And of course, we're absolutely delighted that Inc. cited us as the #1 podcast to make you a better leader. So thank you for sharing the show with everybody you know. And listen, there are over 1 million podcasts out there, but thousands of them are focused on business and leadership. But there is only one show that focuses on the heart and soul of business and leadership, and you're tuned into it with me, your host, Dove Barron. Now remember, we always need your help in staying relevant, so please get yourself over to iTunes, rate, review, and subscribe to the show. All right, let's strip it down and dive right in. As a leader, whether you are a CEO, a C-suite leader, a sales leader, an entrepreneurial leader in any capacity, you know that we have spoken a lot about loyalty and how the lack of loyalty might actually be in a state of crisis today. But what do you do when you've gone out and you've bought the cappuccino machines, you put the ping-pong tables in place, and still your good people are walking away? How do you get them to stay, and how do you show them that you actually care? Well, stay tuned because you're about to find out. Our guest today is Ann Sullivan. Julian is the founder of Learning Never Ends, a company whose purpose is to create a more positive culture, one person at a time. As a professional speaker, Julian has worked with McDonald's USA, Hanna Financial, Highmark, Bayer USA. Her programs are known for her expertise, her innovation, her humor, and engagement with her participants. She hosts the Mere Mortals Unite and Business That Cares podcasts. Ann Sullivan works with organizations that want to create a workplace environment where people are productive, engaged, and appreciated. So, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome to the table. Yes, it's Ann Sullivan. The crowd goes wild. Good to have you here.
So glad to be here. Thanks so much. What an opening.
You're very welcome. So let's start off by going for the jugular. You are a recovering accountant.
Oh gosh, you had to, that is the full Monty right there.
Right there. Let's go after that. So tell us what you mean by a recovering accountant.
Well, I was in the financial services. I was a CPA for 30 years. And I decided one day I didn't want to learn anymore about accounting, not one more piece of information. So I knew I had to leave because you got to keep growing whatever you do.
Yeah.
And I just didn't want to do it anymore. And it wasn't fun. For a long time, believe it or not, it was a lot of fun.
So you actually found accounting fun?
I did.
See, right there is a course you can teach. How to find accounting fun. Because I'm guessing there's a lot of people going,
a lot of people that disagree.
Geez, I wish I could turn this into fun.
Well, for me, it was kind of like a puzzle. And my undergraduate degree is in psychology. So I was always into the people part of it, you know, how the businesses was run. So anyway, I knew I needed to get out. I had always done presentations and I got a lot of good feedback from that. I was a certified Toastmasters. So I was trying to think about what I wanted to be when I grow up. And I said, I'm going to be a professional speaker, not knowing what the heck I was talking about.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's one of those lovely things that looks very glamorous until you dive into it.
Yeah, right.
Now, you said that part of your inspiration for that was looking at your fuzzies. Tell us about your fuzzies. And I'm sure you're not talking about the cats that the cat lady has, or, it was someone else.
No, in fact, I still have a fuzzy file. So I have a file when I'm very blessed. I am constantly receiving nice emails, letters, and other written documents from people about how I touched their lives in some way. And I keep those, and I keep it in a fuzzy file.
Fabulous.
And I still do that today. Sometimes I hang them on the wall. And like I said, I feel very blessed that I touch people's lives in a way that they even want to do that, right?
Yeah, of course.
And they make the effort. So I keep them. So it was those fuzzy files that I really went through and went, okay, I'm already making a difference. How much more of a difference can I make? Mm-hmm. And then my background in psychology and then business, the combination, I went, wow, I understand business from the inside out.
Mm. So let's just go to that for a minute. Talk to us about entering into the world of speaking. I mean, you had done presentations as part of being an accountant,
right?
But there's that transition, crossing that bridge. Tell us a little bit about that. What that was like for you.
Well, I've never had a problem speaking. I don't have that great fear or anything like that. And I'm very good at reading an audience. I think that's from my psych background and my lifelong learner head. And I even like the process of getting ready to speak, but the business of speaking, whoa. I don't think I was so ready for that. Right. Being a solopreneur and, I found the C-Suite Network and the National Speakers Association, and they have become my foundation to grow and made it a lot easier.
Well, that's why I'm asking you, because traditionally speaking, certainly at the beginning for most people, you become an accountant. It's automatic that you are, when you finish your training, you're going to go work for someone. You're going to be inside a business. You're going to be a salary person. Now, you may decide that you're entrepreneurial and start your own practice, but, for most people, it means they're in a job. So, stepping out of that and being entrepreneurial, that must have been quite the culture shock.
Yeah, to see the least. I had some entrepreneurial experience before that, but it was in developing learning for CPAs through a software that a friend of mine had. And so it was, I did that, but that was so specific. And I think when speakers start, they're so broad, many of them, and I was too. Like I used to tell people, I can speak on anything except algebra. And I thought that was good. Later to learn, no, that's not good at all.
Yeah, we've all been down that road.
Yeah,
we've all been down that road. Now,
right, so,
aside from jumping into the career, into the speaking career, you also took on another challenge, and that you started podcasting. And one of the things that you focus on in your podcast, Mere Mortals Unite, is having people focus. You and I was having a chat about this, and I thought it was really cool. Having people focus on their superpowers. Tell us what you mean by that, because I think it was very cool.
Well, what I do is I have people come on and share their superpower, and it has to be a superpower that everyone has. We all are filled with these superpowers, but sometimes we're not even aware, or we used to be aware and they've disappeared, or we gave them up to someone else, or someone else took them from us. And I just think as individuals, we have so much more power over our own lives than we really understand. And I'm one of them. I get in my own way all the time. I'm just better at recognizing it so that I can get back on track. So that's really the focus of what the Mere Mortals Unite podcast is.
So how would somebody recognize one of these, quote, superpowers?
Well, for instance, this morning before I talked to you, I had a woman come on and talk about tenacity and what that was and what that meant as far as keep going after something and not considering a curve in the road a failure, but a opportunity to learn something different. And tenacity is one of those things that everyone can have in their life, but it takes work.
Right.
And if we're going to talk about employee engagement later, everything takes work. There's no shortcuts,
come on.
really. I'm sorry.
Listen, I was going to hire you for my company. I thought you came with a magic wand.
I do. I speak for 2 hours and the whole culture is different and everyone will stay forever. And if you believe that, I have a bridge for you.
Exactly. I have some really great land in Florida too. It's a little off the coast, but it's very good.
It's a little wet. Not much.
Not much.
Yeah.
Few paper towels, everything will be fine. So what's your superpower, Julian?
Oh, my superpower is persistence, which has really helped in this career.
I'll bet. Yeah. I'll bet it really has.
And I just did my core attributes, and mine is positivity. No surprise.
That's very cool. Now, the focus of the work that you do as a speaker and as a consultant is around employee engagement, as you just said. But you did some unusual research that allowed you to go look at companies and what they were doing that was something unique. Tell us a little bit about that, because you were looking for what was unique in the way that they created their employee engagement.
Well, what I did was I started a new podcast series called Businesses That Care. Mm-hmm. And I went out there reading articles, getting Google alerts or whatever, and finding companies written about in, Inc. magazine or Forbes magazine or Harvard Business Review, or came up on Glassdoor or Gallup. And I would contact their leaders and interview them, and have been interviewing them about what they do to create this wonderful workplace culture they have. Mm-hmm. And that has been unbelievable. That has been such a great success, and I've met such wonderful people. I'm really excited about that. And that turned into something that I'm doing now, which is called Your Corporate Podcast, which is going into companies and creating podcasts for them to use internally to keep that going.
So tell us some of the things that you found that are really, quite different. What is unique?
Well, first of all, the companies that make it work are the ones who believe in repetition and reinforcement. The last time I did a keynote, I said, if somebody comes to you and says, I'm going to give you a 2-hour, I can come in 2 hours, change your culture, run as fast as you can. Mm-hmm. Like, that doesn't happen. So the companies I'm talking to have a real code of values or ethics or a vision, whatever you want to call it, whatever they call it, but they use it all the time in everything they do. Right. I talked to a woman this morning, and they are a company that oversees, I think, 15 or 17 other franchises, right? And all their franchisees and all their employees. And they have a list of values that they live by, and they repeat them all the time. They even have a contest that if you can say them, memorize them, and repeat them from your heart, you get a certificate and a $50 gift certificate on also, and right. a shirt that says "Live Rich."
Very cool. In this work for Businesses That Care, you created a list of 37 things of what Businesses That Care entail. Talk to us a little bit about, first of all, creating that list. And why is it 37 long and not 140 or, for that matter, 6?
You're not going to like the answer to that.
Okay, good. Let's dive into that.
So this is a book I'm creating. It'll come out in November. It's called Influence, Innovate, Inspire, 37 Tips to Create a Culture of Engagement. And the reason it came out to 37 is That was the list, 37. There's no magic. There's no special SEO massaging or anything. I just made a list of words that I've used over and over and over again in my work. It starts out with accountability, one of my favorite words, and it ends with vulnerability, which keeps coming out all the time now, that leaders need to show their vulnerability for people to want to stay with them. You talked about loyalty. That's one of the aspects that gets people to be loyal. Wow, the CEO is a human being, right? And so what I've done is I've taken each word and I've given a definition. I've given a piece of what's in it for the reader, because they want to know why they care. Mm-hmm. And then an action step, an open-ended question, and a quote. And the interesting thing about each word is they're not the answer. I mean, for goodness sake, one of the words is leadership, and I wrote a paragraph on it. So you know that you won't learn all about leadership from the tip.
I'm sure you've got it covered then. A whole paragraph?
Oh, goodness, yeah. I think there's 2 paragraphs on leadership. So, you know, it's something to get you going. But right. Even if you took one word and worked on it for a month, 6 months, you know, throughout your company, it would make a profound difference. And right. That's the idea, just to give people a stepping stone to continue the work to make a greater, more successful, happier place to be.
So in that 37 list, you know, you've been doing this a while, you've done all this research, you've found these great companies. Is there one that stands out for you as is the weakest, meaning that, you know, you find that that's the one that most often gets missed? Or is there several that just often get missed and maybe they're assumed or whatever it might be?
Yeah, the ones that are coming to mind, well, the first one is trust. Because if you don't have trust, the rest of them just crumble, really.
Right.
And a lot of times when a company has been acting one way and now it's going to be acting a different way, leaders have to understand that that's going to take time. Mm-hmm. Because if you go to your workforce and say, okay, now we're going to have this open discussion once a month where you're going to tell us how we can make our business better, people are going to think, yeah, right, mm-hmm. like you care.
Right.
That's real. So you have to give it time. So trust is really important, and knowing that it's earned. There's no way to get it except over time and walking your talk, as they say.
So let's dive into that, because, you know, we want to talk about actually creating the loyalty. So for our C-suite individuals who are tuned in right now, who are leading teams, etc., where does or how does really developing that trust start for that leader? What do they need to, what's the sort of the first couple of steps into that, to really generating true trust?
Authenticity, accountability, mm-hmm. and great communication skills, okay. Which means listening as much as speaking.
Okay, so let's go back. So accountability. So I think you know as well as I do that if you go out there and you ask these individuals, these leaders, are you accountable? The answer is always yes.
Yeah.
I am, but right. They're not.
Right.
So,
well, if they have asked their workforce if that's true and they think so too, then I can agree with them. But a lot of times, not a lot of times, sometimes leaders think they're being accountable, but their workforce isn't. So you just have to have that conversation. And people, again, that makes leaders vulnerable. And there's still plenty of leaders out there that think that that makes them weak. Mm-hmm. But certainly it doesn't. It's just the opposite, right?
Say that because that's what we were conditioned to believe.
Right. And in actuality, it's just, from my psychology background, it's just the opposite.
Absolutely.
It's the strong that helps. It's the strong that asks for help, not mm-hmm. the weak.
Yeah. I wrote a massive section of that. My last book was all about that and the power of vulnerability. But again, you know, you and I both know that for those people who are certainly over 40, that was not the social, that was not the structural conditioning of what it meant to be a leader. What it meant to be a leader was you're the guy, gal with all the answers, and you never show the chink in your armor. And what we know is that the greatest leaders of today, the ones who are cleaning up, are the ones who actually say, hey, I'm going to be accountable, I'm going to be open, I'm going to be vulnerable, I'm going to be completely transparent about who I am and what it is we're doing and where we're challenged.
Right.
But old school leaders, man, I mean, they are just holding on to that rigid.
Well, it's unfortunate because, we're coming into a time where there's going to be a huge employee shortage.
Absolutely.
For many reasons. One, boomers are leaving. Two, the younger generations, there aren't as many of them, number one. Mm-hmm. And number two, in school now you can get a degree in entrepreneurship. You never could do that before. So there's a lot more entrepreneurs that aren't going into the workforce. And so companies are going to be fighting for employees. Yeah. And these companies who don't get it yet that workplace culture and employee engagement makes a difference are going to be the losers. My prediction is there aren't even going to be enough people in their workforce to deliver the product and services they want to do, because employee engagement, workplace culture is not something you put out with a hose. Like that's not going to happen in a day and a half or a week or a month.
Right.
So these leaders who have their feet stuck in the sand, and they're not great leaders because they're not reading. If they'd been reading, right, and educating themselves, which a great leader always learns more. Yeah. Correct?
Absolutely.
So if they've been doing that, then they know, wow, we got to do something way more than a ping pong table and, a Keurig.
A nice cappuccino machine and a ping pong
table.
It's
good. It's a beginning. I'm not saying it's not good. It's a beginning.
So you've spoken at places like McDonald's and some of these other large organizations. First of all, how did you go to become speaking for them? Because again, you were doing the accounting, you went into this, and what have you noticed about those kinds of organizations in the context of culture and loyalty?
Well, I think the bigger the company, the longer it takes. I find, I'm sure people would disagree with me, but I find that really large companies with many, 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 many layers, it's really difficult to get all the layers to do something unless, they make a decision that that's what they're going to do and they move forth and they start at the top, not the bottom.
Right.
You start at the top and they get it together and then the next level gets it together and so on and so forth. So, and you invite people from all levels when you're going to make changes like that. That's a whole other discussion on how to manage change and get people engaged. But that is one way to get people engaged. So I think it's really difficult for very large companies to do that. Harder because if they haven't been doing it all along and moving in that direction, boy, that's a hard turn to make.
So how did you come to be doing your thing at places like McDonald's? Well,
McDonald's was one of those flukes of nature. I had my name out there and we were just a perfect fit for what I was going to do for them. And it was a match made in heaven at the time.
And how long ago was that? Was that fairly recent?
That was probably 5 years ago.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah,
That's
that was a
cool.
while ago.
And did you find, because like you said, the reason I'm bringing it up is because that is one of the titans. It's massive.
Right. Well, I just did, all I did was I did a district office.
Of course. Yeah, I understand that. But very often in that kind of a situation, it's like, yeah, this is really great stuff, but head office is never going to buy it. Or, it becomes that office and we can sort of, okay, this is great, but when the big boys see us, did you because everything, one of the things about big organizations, actually even not that big, but even from a medium-sized organization to the titans, one of the major challenges is silos. And I know you do a lot of work with communication.
Oh my gosh, culture killers.
Right. So you do a lot of work with communication. We're talking about silos, and now we're talking about silos within, so not even within departments, which is often what happens, marketing versus sales, etc.
Right.
But now we've got the silo, the potential silo at least, of the district office versus the head office. Talk to us a little bit about how you've dealt with that and what you would recommend for somebody who might be in that situation.
Well, I think that all that you can do, if you're in a district office, it depends, right, about what leeway you're given by the umbrella company, first of all. So a lot of people in district offices don't even get that opportunity. But it doesn't mean they shouldn't ask.
Right.
And I think a lot of times in district offices are thinking, well, I don't ask. But they might have their own budget for training and development, so they should use it. Right? And use it in a way where they're working with somebody that you set goals together. Like when I work with a company, I want to talk to them before, I want to do my thing, I want to talk to them after and talk about what more we can do to move towards that goal. I don't prefer to come in and say, okay, I'll talk about communications and I'll see you later. I know a lot of people do that, and I do it too, but it's not what I prefer.
Right.
So for the district offices that have their own budgets, I say, try something different. See how it works, but give it a good plan so that it can work. Right? A lot of people say, well, I had Julianne come in and speak for an hour in communication. Everybody loved her, and then everything went back the way it was. Well, that's not Julianne's fault.
Right. So give us one of those communication skills, one of those things, particularly in the context of developing loyalty. What would be something that see, what I'm saying here is what I want is for our listeners, our viewers to go, okay, I just watched this. I just listened to the show with Julianne and with Dove, and I'm going to go away and I'm going to do this. I'm going to see how I can put this in place.
I have a great example.
Thank you.
Many times leaders get ideas at midnight or on Saturdays or whatever. And then they send out an email to John or Joan and say, hey, why don't we blah, 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 whatever it is. Doesn't matter what it is. And they send it out. Now, Joan or John are out there and they get that email on their phone at midnight and they think, what an ass.
Right.
Are you kidding me? It's 12 o'clock at night, or it's Saturday, or it's Sunday, and I'm with my family. And what's he doing? And I actually worked with a VP once, and he was telling me this, and I said, well, do you expect them to do something right away? And he said, oh, no, I'm just thinking about it. And I've done that before, too. I have ideas, and I write them to people. And I said, well, how about at the end of those emails you write, just thought about it, don't expect anything to be done until you get back in the office? Right. What do you think that would do to your relationship with those people?
Yeah, I think that's I think that you're right. If you got into a leadership position, one would hope that you have gotten there because you do have innovation, you do have innovative ideas, and innovative ideas don't always come at 9 to 5, and they often come, as you said, while you're taking a shower, washing the dog, or whatever it might be.
Right.
And
I do it on road trips.
Yeah, I have friends who they get all their best ideas while they drive. Right. Not a good idea to try and write it down while you're driving.
I take a recorder with me.
Right. Exactly. Right. So whatever it means. But when you're communicating that to a team, and you have to communicate it over to your team, I agree with you. I actually would go further and actually put it at the front end, which is to say, listen, I just had this great idea. There's nothing to do with it until you get back to work, but I just wanted to share it with you. Immediately the anxiety is gone, because if I read the first part about the idea, I'm already in anxiety that I got to go do it on it's Saturday and I'm pissed off at you. But if it's at the front end.
Here's even a better idea. The next time you have a team meeting, because you're an authentic, accountable, real person, you approach your team and you say, look, I'm a nut. At 2 o'clock in the morning, I get ideas. I want to send them out. I'm telling you all right now, whatever time of day or day of the week I send you stuff, don't work on it until you get in the office.
Fabulous.
Now I never have to say it again. If you take it on, and here's the extra part, if you do take it on, that's on you.
Right.
That's not on me.
Right.
If you feel like, oh, he did it, she did it, I got to go for it right away, that's on you. That's your accountability. Because I'm telling you right now, you don't have to do it. So
very important.
So I think that's another way around that.
Yeah, absolutely. You, as you said, you started out with accounting, you've gone in, you've become a speaker, you've become a consultant, you've become a podcaster. And you and I are not 23, so we've seen things change around a little bit. I'm really fascinated to hear, what do you see as the next evolution in leadership? Where do you see leadership going?
I think that leadership is going to understand how important it is to have that connection with the people they work with. Mm-hmm. That it's going to get further and further away, as many people have already done, from being in some ivory tower, with 18 guards to go through, and be, they only have so much time in the day too.
Sure.
And I don't expect CEOs to go out to their 10,000 employees and see everyone, but I would like to see them, and I think they will build a community,
right,
a workforce that's much more like a community. Mm-hmm. And maybe people can't talk directly to them, but they do have someone that they talk to on a regular basis. The biggest thing now is annual reviews are like, talk about old school.
Yeah.
If you're still doing annual reviews, wake up.
Yeah. Hello, whoa, 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 whoa. Because wherever you are, you're in the back of the cave.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. But, there's still plenty of people doing that.
Well, I think, so this is part of this, what I'm saying about the evolution of leadership. I think that I think there's a lot of leaders out there who think that, quote, think they're on the cutting edge. And they're, one of my things that I talk about is, are you leading like it's 20 years ago? Right? And the answer to that, of course, is no, of course I'm not.
Not me.
Not me. Until let's find out. Are you doing this? Yep. Are you doing that? Yep. Are you doing that? Sometimes. Are you doing this? Mostly. Well, then you're leading like it's 20 years ago. Right. So it's a fascinating piece to look at for most people,
Well, it's one of the reasons why I think it's so important for people, and this is like the vulnerability, to be able to say sometimes we need outside resources to help us see ourselves, whether it's our business or our own personal being. You and I know many people who are put into leadership roles that were very good at production, but they don't have the leadership skills necessary. And unfortunately, their organization doesn't get it for them.
No.
And so they become bad leaders, which is the number one reason people leave their jobs.
Absolutely. And again, it's the Peter principle, right? People are promoted to the level of their incompetence.
Competence,
right?
Yeah.
So
and it's really not their fault.
No, not at all. But, if you're a spectacular producer as an accountant, and you keep going up the scale because you're so damn good at that. And so the boss goes, okay, let's promote you. Now you can help the other accountants also be super producers, but you have the people skills of a wet sock. Yeah. That's going to be a challenge. And unfortunately, if you've not been trained, it can feel like a distraction. So you want me to go do this course on emotional intelligence, or you want me to do this course on communication skills, you want me to do this course on these, quote, soft skills, but I'm the big producer here. What a waste of time. Why am I doing this? I already produce. Well, that's fine, then go back to the conveyor belt. But if you're going to lead, this is a people skills based thing. And I think that is very often where we fall down. We don't realize that leadership is people skills. Yes, you've got to be a decision maker. Yes, you've got to be a visionary. Yes, you've got to know how the business works, but you've also got to know how to work with people. That might be a decent skill to have.
Right. And I no longer use the word soft skills because all the soft skills I know are essential skills for success.
Exactly. Yeah, you're right. They're absolutely essential. Couldn't agree with you more. So let's go back, because one of the things I'm constantly challenging people on is to have this sense of
challenging?
I know you find that hard to believe. It's so shocking. I know. Who would believe that?
It's unbelievable. Just like people don't think I was ever an accountant. It's
exactly.
Like, they shake their head.
So one of the things I challenge people to do is to look at, we all do it. We're all looking at, am I there yet? We're all that kid on the family trip in our own development. And sometimes we can hit the wall. We've all done it. We've all hit the wall. And sometimes when we hit that wall, for many people, it takes them off the road. And for some people, it means they've got to redefine themselves and look at who they are and what they do. Can you tell us a time when you were doing something maybe for a long time that you likely thought was good, but it actually was blocking you? It was stopping you reaching the level of your success, and maybe even led you down the path to a failure that possibly turned you around?
Yeah, I'll tell you, this is a interesting story. So there was a time when I was doing speaking and I was still doing accounting, and I wasn't working in a firm anymore. And I took a job going out and doing continuing education for a company in little conferences around the state of Pennsylvania. And I took a job and I didn't say no. It was on partnership tax, which I didn't understand at all. And I was ill prepared. And in my audience were 3 people who decided to make me their dartboard.
Oh.
And I wasn't, because I knew I wasn't prepared and I wasn't tenacious enough at the time, I didn't know how to steer them away, like saying, that's very interesting, but that's not what we're covering right now. So can we talk at the break?
Right.
Or something like that. And talk about being vulnerable. This is a story I've never told before. I actually ended up having a panic attack. I had to end the class early.
Wow.
And not surprising, I got fired. But it was a really good lesson for me in being able to say, no, I don't do that. Right? And I think that's really important on any level. It's important for everyone to learn what they don't do well, what they need help with, what they need to delegate.
Yeah.
I do a podcast, you do a podcast. I don't do the production piece afterwards.
Right.
I don't even want to know how. I don't.
Right.
I want someone else to do it. So that was a failure, but not because I learned I took responsibility.
But
I should have said no.
The thing is that, again, this is for all of our listeners and our viewers tuning in. If you are in that moment right now, if you're in the moment of that failure, somebody saying to you, this is going to be a great lesson for you, you may be tempted to kick them in the under areas or punch them in the eye, and I wouldn't blame you. And I want to say that because I think it's really quite insensitive to say that to somebody who's in a lot of pain at the time. The truth of the matter is, it will be, if you're tenacious, as you said, and if you're willing to grow, it will be a fabulous lesson, but only looking back. Nothing is a great lesson in the moment, and in the moment, it's like somebody punched you in the face, and it sucks.
Oh, it was painful for me, and I was ashamed, and
of course.
And all this stuff, horrible, just really, and it was a few days, and I went, and then I could look at it and be responsible. And I've always been a person to say, well, what can I learn from this? But it's interesting because you can take that same example and you can use it in a company who's trying something new. Let's say they have a new engagement tool they're using or a new idea to have monthly meetings.
Right.
You know, I do a lot of work with change management, and in my plan that I have for change, execution is not the last step. And for too many people, they think execution is the last step. It's not. That's the time to evaluate and grow and tweak and adjust and adapt, because I don't think anything ever works exactly how we think it's going to work. And if you go in with that attitude, then you're really disappointed. But in a company, and this is one thing I find missing largely in a company,
Yeah.
you know, if a company has a new product or service, they spend a lot of time, energy, and money and training on marketing that new product or service. But when companies have a new change within their company, they don't do any of that.
No.
They throw it on the wall and they expect everyone to do it and do it well. That doesn't work. So you can really engage people by, you know, giving them the why. Why are we doing this?
Absolutely.
What is our goal for doing this? And by the way, once we execute, we're going to be looking to you who are using this every day. Let's say it's a new software,
Right.
who are using this every day to come back to us and tell us what needs to be changed, what works well, what could be tweaked. You tell people that up front, you know how engaged they are to a new change.
Of course. You're absolutely right. And I think that's a huge challenge because I think you're right. I mean, I think that, you know, we do it and then we expect people to get it. And then we look at the consultant and say, you know, your stuff didn't work. Well, might be something a little off with that. Maybe you want to apply it and you want to test it and you want to get the feedback. And you want to not just jump to a conclusion, but this is part of the dilemma in leadership. Is that you have to learn to make decisions fast, and that means cut away stuff that doesn't work fast. And I get that, but there are things that you've also got to give enough time to actually find out whether they work.
Correct.
And because this is not a freaking software, this is not even a hardware.
It's life.
This is not a hardware. This is, as they used to say in one of the sci-fi shows, this is wetware. This is the stuff inside of your coconut, and it takes a while. And people, you've got to do the feedback loops and all the rest of it. So it's a great
And everybody learns differently. That's another thing you have to accept.
Absolutely.
Some people are auditory learners. Some people are visual learners.
Some people are kinesthetic, and you've got to have the physical experiences,
kinesthetically.
all
They've got
kinds
to
of
do
ways.
it like that, or some are longer, some are shorter, whatever.
Absolutely.
Everybody's different, so it's not all going to be the same. And once you know that and you can accept that and you can let other people know that you accept that, then they're more willing to try something new.
Yeah.
And you know, you talk about employee engagement. The best piece of employee engagement is how are you doing your recruiting? Yeah,
it's fascinating to me because I've actually had that conversation. Is that you know, it's important, of course, you want to engage the people you've got, of course, but you want to make sure that your filter system works. Because if your filter system doesn't work, and that's what I loved about Tony Hsieh with Zappos, is like, here's $5,000, go away.
Yeah.
Because if you take the $5,000 on day one, you're actually, it's good for us to let you go and it'll cost us less than keeping you here. So,
right.
But
because that person will be there and 3 other good people will leave.
Of course. Yeah.
It's much more costly.
They poison the system. Tell us a problem or a challenge that you're currently working on in your business. Something that you're facing with growing, developing your own business. What is one of those challenges that you're dealing with?
I would say it's a recurring challenge because it's something I continually have to work on. And that is, but I'm getting really good at it this year. And that is not going in too many directions. And really focusing. Like I have 3 major pieces of my business that I'm focusing on this year. The book, getting the book done.
Yes.
creating this Your Corporate podcast and starting that with different companies. And I have a new website coming out in September from scratch. So it's a complete redo. And so, for instance, this year when I went to the National Speakers Association, I really didn't go to learn anything. I mean, I did learn a lot, of course, but I really went to see people I've never seen speak before that I've heard about. So I'd go to their sessions for that. Did a lot more networking and talking with people, over on the side for an hour, because I really don't need any more projects. So that's something I constantly work on. And I think that's the same for any business. You can't, if you try to do too many things at once, everything gets lost in the shuffle.
Yeah. Absolutely. What would you say is your unshakable philosophy when it comes to what it is how you operate in business?
Tomorrow's a new day. I really think that this persistence in everything we do with a positive attitude really makes a difference in how much success anyone can have. We need to be persistent because nothing happens in an instant, as we've discussed. My favorite poster or line is "Life is a journey, not a destination." Mm-hmm. And everything is a journey. So we don't ever get to the end of the journey. It just folds off into another journey. Right. And if we can accept that, it makes the journey much easier. And then the other is to always do it with a positive attitude. And that can be done with just the change of words. People, if you think of people working for you as opposed to with you, mm-hmm. the relationship changes.
Yeah, vastly. Yeah. And I've actually used that analogy myself, and I've said, try that in your marriage.
Yeah. Or your friendship.
Yeah, I would say, try in a marriage. Just try that. Try going home and saying, you're here for me versus you're here with me, and see how long you stay married. It's an interesting test of loyalty. Oh, okay, well, bye-bye then. Yes, that thing you like to call sex? That's over. Yeah. See you later.
Right.
People
don't want to feel indebted, right? No. They want to feel like they're a part of the community, like I said. So I would say persistence with a positive attitude.
Very cool. What would be if you were, say, the thing that you want a C-suite leader to take away from this interview more than anything, what would it be?
To build a community instead of building a bunch of people to make you money. Uh-huh. Everybody wants the bottom line to be better. Duh. Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. I don't think we really need to spend too much time on knowing that. But building a community will bring you more of that and everybody else. Mm-hmm. Right? Because as a company gets better, everyone gets better. Or that is the way I see it should be. I don't like to use should too much, but if a company is growing, everybody should have the opportunity to grow. Right. Only if you want people to stay. Only if you want people to work their best. Right. Only if you want people to be problem solvers. Only if you really want people to actually come to work. Because the key to all this is when people feel better about what they do, when they know their purpose, when they know the why, when they know they can be authentic themselves, they get sick less often. And there's tons of research on that.
Yeah, that's very true. Very true.
So only if you want the best of the best to be with you on this journey full-heartedly, then you can follow these ideas. If you don't care, bye-bye.
Exactly. No more eye contact. As Karen Walker would say.
Okay, fine. That, and I don't mean that in a mean way. I'm really not judging because some things just aren't a good fit.
Nope.
I have a friend of mine who I coach to deal with the people she works with because they're all bullies. Why they haven't gotten sued, I have no idea. But they're just a group of bullies. Right. They could make so much more money, but they don't care. They make enough money to to fuel their toys, and that's all they really care about.
Wow.
So I'm not a good fit for them, but here's a funny story. So I coached this woman 3 years ago on how to deal with the bullies because she needed to stay in that job. Well, she just called me the other day and now wants me to put in a proposal to coach 2 other people.
Fabulous.
So you never know.
You never know.
You never know.
What would you say is the number one thing from your childhood that has influenced the way you lead?
My mom.
Tell us about that.
She's no longer with us, but boy, she had a lot of really incredible wisdom. One of my favorites is nothing lasts. And when I was younger, I used to think that was really negative, but it's not. It's I've learned that it's really positive and it'll get you out of a lot of holes.
Mm-hmm.
And we all have different holes, whether they're personal or business or a product we tried or a service we tried or organizational change we tried, whatever. Nothing lasts. And sometimes I think in businesses, leaders need to remember that many of the changes they make don't have to be set in stone forever.
Yeah.
If you go into it with, if we make this change, that's the end. No, you can try stuff. I mean, you want to think it through and
Sure.
you want it to work.
Of course.
But you can change back, right? If it doesn't work.
Or you can change direction.
Or you can change direction, which is usually what happens. So
Sure.
I really like that nothing lasts.
I love that.
And she was a pretty tenacious woman herself and completely changed careers when she was in her mid-60s and loved life and lived every day to the fullest. She fell down many times and she just kept getting back up until the big C got her.
Wow.
So she's been gone a long time and I still miss her. But I remember her a lot of the lessons that she gave me.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure. That's powerful. Thank you for sharing that with us. I really appreciate that. It's been great having you here, Julianne. Please share with our viewers and our listeners where they can find out more about you and what it is that you do.
Well, they can go to juliansullivan.com. That's pretty easy. I have no E on the end of Ann. They can find me on LinkedIn. They can find me on Twitter. They can go to meremortalsunite.com and get both the Mere Mortals podcast and Businesses That Care. They can find me on C-Suite. If you want to find me, you can find me.
Well, it's been great having you here. Thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Dove.
And I enjoyed having you here with us. And I want to say to you, dear listener, as always, feel free to reach out to Julianne. Reach out. Get in touch with her. I encourage you to do that. I encourage you to get in touch with her and tell her what you got out of the show and what you're going to do with it, because listening to the show will not change a damn thing. You also have to put stuff in action. I know it's a bizarre idea, but you've actually got to do that. So reach out to her. Let her know what you enjoyed about the show. She gave you her time to be here with you and share with you. So please do that. Again,
and I have some free resources for people too. So if they contact me, I'll hook them up to my resource vault.
Fabulous, fabulous. So just go over to juliansullivan.com. Like she said, you can find her. And I want to remind you, dear listener, that the research consistently shows that the biggest challenges facing the most successful companies is somewhat counterintuitive. The fastest growing companies often hit the point where they realize they're spending an absolute fortune training, attracting, and developing talent, only to have them leave at an alarming rate. If you're sick of investing in training and developing your talent, only to have them leave before you've had a return on investment, then come and talk to us at fullmontyleadership.com, where we provide the essential leadership skills to rekindle and amplify the hidden loyalty assets of your organization by tapping into the sole purpose of the leaders and the organization itself. fullmontyleadership.com, providing you the concrete soft skills to get you and your organization to the top and keep you there. Why? Simple, because you can't outsource authenticity. And also remember to get yourself over to the Matrix, which is matrix.fullmontyleadership.com, to get your authentic leadership matrix self-assessment tool. It's valued at $197. You get it absolutely free for being a loyal listener. Again, matrix.fullmontyleadership.com. Till next time, this is Dov Barron, fullmontyleadership.com, saying stay curious, my friends, stay curious about having a deeper level of conversation, opening up a little bit more, being a little more vulnerable, and listening at least twice as much as you speak. Till next time, this is Dov Barron, and I'm out.